Today we geek out about Outpost, Siberia. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Lee from Geek City USA here, and today we're going to geek out about a game called Outpost Siberia. Now, Outpost Siberia is a game by John Gilmore and Daryl Andrews in which it's a cooperative game and you're trying to survive the elements. So it's almost as though you are explorers that are out in the mountains, out in the cold, trying to make it through and live to see another day. So I'm going to take you over here. I'm going to show you how to play, do a little bit of a sample run through, and then I'll let you know my thoughts at the end.
Alright guys, so these are the main components for Outpost Siberia. And I'm going to give you a quick run through on the rules here, but first let me point something out. So this right here, this is the rule book for Outpost Siberia. And while this will let you play the game, this will give you everything that you really need, I have to definitely stress for you to go and download the survival guide. You can get it, I believe, from the IDW website, but even easier, it's available on Board Game Geek under the Outpost Siberia game. And what that is that's an updated PDF with some additional information, some slight rules tweaks that actually makes the game a little bit easier. And you're still going to lose a lot because it's the type of game that this is, but it does change some things that makes the game a little less frustrating in the wrong ways. It's the perfect changes that definitely help tweak the gameplay just right. So again, it's called the Survival Guide. Go check that out. Okay, so first and foremost, this is for 2 to 6 players. I really don't see a reason why you couldn't play this solo. I think it would function just fine. It's a lot more fun when you're going through the stress with another person. But again, I've played this on my own during the lunch hour or whatever. When I just have some downtime, and it definitely works. It's definitely enjoyable that way, but it's a lot of fun when you're interacting and suffering with somebody else. So can be a solo game. It says 2 to 6, but I think you could play it with 1. Let me start by going through these cards real quick. These are multi-purpose cards, and what that means is if you see here, this card up here has one item, and if you flip it over, it has another item. Now, what that basically means is depending where you draw this card from, or any of these cards from really, they could either be an event, bad stuff that happens, or it becomes an item card. So a lot of these items as you play them, or a lot of these events I should say, as you play them and as you go through the threats, once you defeat them or make your way through them, they'll make their way to the discard pile and then they'll come back in as their as an item. So you'll be able to kind of eventually put those items to use and you don't have to worry about the threats any longer. All right, so when you do the initial setup, you're going to put your cards into 4 piles. You're going to have your survivors, and these are the characters that you play throughout the game. You're going to have your bad events, and these are obviously, as it says, these are bad things that happen. Then you're going to have your good events. Now these are considered to be good, but there's still some bad involved with the good event, and we'll get to that as we explain this game. And then you have your threats, and these are the really bad creatures or things that happen as the game goes on. Now, when you do the initial setup, one of the updated rules in the survival guide is that you're going to randomly remove 6 of these threat cards. And these threat cards could be just different things you may encounter, and each one's going to have a different action, something that they do that's bad, in addition to how much life they have and how much damage they do when they arrive. So we're going to shuffle these, and you can just randomly remove 6 during your gameplay. So I'll just do that for the sake of this little setup. Then you're left with the threats you're going to use in the game. And then you're going to go ahead and take these, and this is another updated rule, of the threats that are discarded. You're discarding 6 of them. You're going to deal one of those to each person who's playing in the game, and this will make up their starting hand. So you'll see it'll start you off with an attack value and a food. Or I shouldn't say food, but food or water or what have you. And any players, so if you're only playing with 3 players, those extra 3 cards just get sent back to the box so you don't use them during the game. Then what you're going to do is you're going to choose a character. You can just go through here. If you notice, each character has obviously a name, and then they have a little action that they can perform. Each one's different. And then they have life. One thing that I would suggest is there are these 2 here, the Trail Guide and the Ice Climber. That they're kind of low on the life scale, so if this is your first game and there's not 6 of you, you might want to shy away from using these 2, although Their actions are, pretty helpful. But when you're getting started with the game, it's good to kind of go at it with a full 4 life points. Just my recommendation anyway. Once you have your first play and you're familiar with the game, hey, go at it any way you want. So then what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle the event decks and you're going to choose your difficulty level. So what that means is if you're playing easy, you're going to pick 8 good events and 4 bad events. If you're going normal, you're going to do 6 and 6. And then if you're going hard, you'll do 4 good events and 6 bad events. And of course, you can customize this any way you want. You just want to have a total of 12 events. So if, let's say you're going to do just a normal game, you could take 6 cards out, set the rest aside, 6 cards of these, and set these aside as well. And then what you're going to do with the good and bad events that you decide to keep, you're going to take those in with the threat deck and you're going to shuffle it up really good. And this here is going to make up your expedition deck. And this is the deck that when you play the game, you need to make it all the way through this deck and clear every threat and every event that comes through in order to win the game. So you'll shuffle this up really well, better than I do in this little example here, but you get the idea. And then the remaining cards, the cards that you don't use, these become your Outpost deck. And that means these are just used as the items that they are. So first aid kits, ice axes, water, food, what have you. And this is what your characters will draw each turn. So one way to kind of help you, if you notice this is yellow here, you flip so the yellow side is face up. The way that I really remember is you're on a cold mountain, the bad stuff is blue because you're cold, you're freezing. So I always keep that face up and it kind of helps me. That's how I remember anyway, but then again, each their own. So now one thing to add about the character cards, before I forget, is your life points are your max life that you can have throughout the game. So if you play a card that say this guy's at 4 health already, and you play a card that lets him gain a health point, you can't actually go beyond 4. So there is a max out. You can't go above your default health. So that's important to note as the game goes on. All right, in order to win this game, all survivors must survive and clear all cards from the expedition deck. If you manage to clear all cards but you lose one person, if one person dies, you lose the game. So it's really all for one for all. There's no player elimination. It's you either are all going to make it through this or you're going to die together. And this game is played in rounds. Each player will get 1 turn per round. And then after each player has a turn, they draw a threat card out of the expedition deck. And when you're choosing player turn order, it's up to you to pick what order you guys want to go in. There might be some benefits to having, like if this is the start of a round, you might want Expedition Lead Hans to go first because of his special ability, or maybe he's more injured, and that way when a threat attacks, it's going to attack somebody who's not currently playing or who's not currently taking the action. So if you have an injured person, you might want to have them play first. So again, you pick as a group who wants to go first. And then in order to do the second player, you again get to pick who goes next, unless if there is a threat drawn, not a bad event, but if a threat's drawn, it actually does this damage to one player in your party. And what happens is whoever takes that damage, and I'll explain how that happens in a bit, but whoever takes that damage would be forced to take the next turn. And each turn is made up of 5 phases. And starting with the first phase, you're going to draw Outpost cards. Now, this is one of the updated rules in the survival guide. And in that, you're going to draw, with the updated rules, you're going to draw 3 cards. And look at them. You discard 1 card. So say whatever, you don't want this card. And then 1 card is going to go in your hand, and the other card is going to be played into your supply. And what that means by the supply is if it's in your hand, okay, you can only use it for its attack value, or its combat value as it's called in this game. If it goes to the supply, it's used as the item that it is. So, for example, in my hand, I can't use this as a flamethrower to defeat a threat. I actually can only use it to do damage to a threat. However, if this was in the supply, I would be able to use this to defeat a threat. And again, that'll make sense as I do a gameplay example, but just remember that if it's in your hand, use it for the combat value. If it's in your supply, you use it for the item that it is. The second phase in a turn is to attack threats. So let's bring up a threat here. So let's say this is currently an active threat. So you may choose to attack a threat. So say this is my hand. I can play an attack card or any number of cards from my hand to do damage to this threat. So right here it would be perfect. I could play this card on this, and that would do 2 damage to this raging onager. Now you have to note that even though this does damage, this card is not removed, and that's important, and that'll make sense at the next step here. So once you play any number of cards, you get to use equipment, and that would be whatever is in the supply deck. So in this example, let's say this was in our supply deck. We could use the flamethrower, which is required to defeat a threat that has had its life reduced to 0. So this threat has had its life reduced to 0 because it has 2 life. We played a 2 combat value card on it. So then I can play this card, and then all 3 of these would get sent to the discard pile. Now there are 3 types of different equipment cards. There are flares, which these let you ignore the effects of one threat for the rest of the round. And there are first aid kits, which help you to recover 1 health point. And then there are weapons, and the weapons are flamethrowers and ice axe, and those are what lets you defeat a threat that has its life taken to 0. Now some threats can only be defeated by ice axe, and some can only be defeated by the flamethrower. So it's not always you can use one or the other, and there are going to be times when you can't play cards larger than 2. The threat numbers or the combat value numbers come into play even more so than just doing the most damage that you can. All right, and then the 4th phase, you're going to endure the expedition, and that's where you draw the top card from the expedition deck. And if it's an event, first and foremost, you have to discard here. It says pay 1, this would be water. So you would look into hopefully in your general supply, you have this card sitting there, which lets you play it as food. So if this is in your supply and this is the threat that comes up, or the event that comes up, you pay 1 water, so this would get discarded. And then you could do what this says, and this says light-footed, choose 1 threat, the effects of that threat are ignored for the rest of the round. So if there was a threat in play, see where this one says you cannot use cards with a combat value of 1 to attack this threat, you could actually ignore that for the rest of the round. And then these go into your discard pile, and you end up drawing them later as the game goes on. So that was an example of a good event. However, it is possible to draw a bad event, and in this case, you would pay this is food. So you're paying food that already is lousy, and then you're going to do something bad. Discard 1 flamethrower from the supply if possible, otherwise discard the top card of the Outpost deck. So these events typically are going to make a bad situation much, much worse. And then the 3rd type of card that you may draw from the expedition deck is an actual threat. Now these threats, as soon as you draw them, they will do 1 damage. Now what happens is you pick a player who has not yet been exhausted, and they take 1 damage. And what that means is during your round, let's say you're playing a game with 3 people, these 3 characters. Once a player takes their turn, you tap their card, and that player is exhausted for the rest of the round. So say that I'm Ice Climber Anai, or Anani. So say I'm the Ice Climber, and I drew this card, it would do 1 damage. I have to give 1 damage to a non-exhausted player in my group. So in this case, the person that would have to take the 1 damage is the trail guide. So this trail guide would then have her life go from 2 to 1. And then this threat is in play for the remainder of the game until we do 3 damage to it. And each one, again, has their own little action or threat that happens during a specific phase of the game. And then after your turn, you exhaust your character card and you go on to the next person's turn. At the end of the round, once all players have been exhausted, then all the threats take effect. So as the game goes on, you may have more than 1 threat. So in this case, let's just say you have these 3 threats in play. The stuff in each action box will take effect. So if you look here, this one, you cannot use cards with a CV1 to attack this threat. You don't have to worry about that guy doing anything to you. That's just kind of an ongoing lingering effect. Some of this, as you see here, this one, at the end of each round, while this threat is in play, you must discard 1 food from the supply if possible. Otherwise, 1 player loses 1 health point. So as you can see, the effect from this threat is going to be pretty detrimental and pretty bad if you don't clear it up quick. And then if you have all three of these out, this one would also make you discard 1 water, otherwise you lose a hit point. So it definitely is key to attack and get rid of like a lot of these with the ongoing effects more than the ones that just kind of linger and don't do anything that's really too brutal to you. And the game continues on until all the expedition cards are cleared from the deck. And at that point, you're rescued, you're at the top of the mountain, helicopter comes down, yay, we all can have coffee, tea, and hot cocoa. However, if any one of your characters that you're playing with dies, you lose. Or if there are ever 5 threats in play at the end of any turn, you lose. It's just too much to handle and you guys are just completely overwhelmed. So that, in a nutshell, is how to play Outpost Siberia. Now I'm going to take you over and I'm going to do a brief run through and just to kind of give you an example of what some turns look like in this game. Alright, so this is Outpost Siberia and here we are. I've set us up for 3 players. I've chosen Tracker, Tanaka, Survivalist Dana, and Expedition Lead Hans. And truthfully, the reason I picked these, they have 4 health each, so it'll help me help me not die so quick in this example run through. I've also went ahead and already dealt out their starting hands of 1 card each from the threats. I've set the threat deck with 6 good events and 6 bad events, so that's considered a normal game, and I've shuffled that in with the remaining threats. And then this is our Outpost deck, the deck that we will be drawing. I left this over here so that way you can see big scary bear thing, bad deck. And then this is us, so that's the good deck. And in this area here is where I'll put whatever's in our supply and we'll kind of figure this out as we go. All right, so I'm gonna start with Tracker Tanaka first. And if you look, he has a starting hand of 1 food and it does, there's a 1 combat value. So I'm going to start, we will draw up 3 additional cards. So 1, 2, and 3. We get to add 1 to our hand, discard 1 and put 1 in the supply. So I definitely want a first aid kit in the supply, so I'll set that there. And then I will go ahead and hold on to a first aid kit because that's a 2 attack. And then right here, I'm just gonna discard this one. So this will be our discard pile right here. Actually, and I will even move this deck up. So that way we have room for all the supplies we hope to amass. All right, so my draw was phase 1. And then phase 2 is attack threats. Currently, we do not have any threats here, so I don't need to attack anything. My third option is going to be to use some equipment. We don't have any equipment that I need to use right now. First aid kit's no big deal. So then we'll go down to the 4th step, and this is where we endure the expedition. So I'll set his starting cards here. Okay, so on to the expedition step. We will go ahead and draw here, and we draw a bad event. So it starts with pay 1 water. We don't have any water in our supply. We only have a first aid kit here. So that's lousy. So first and foremost, because we can't pay the water, we have to choose a person in our group to lose 1 health. So we will just choose me, or the first guy whose turn it is, just for the sake of this. And then we'll look here and it says missing flare. Discard 1 flare, 1 food, or 1 water from the supply if possible. We only have 1 first aid kit, so that's not possible. So otherwise, discard the top card of the Outpost deck. So we'll just go ahead here and we discard this card, which was a 3 attack value card. That's kind of a bummer. But at the same time, that is it for this card. So this card can actually go into the Outpost discard pile. And the flare that's on the bottom of that card will eventually be shuffled back into our deck. So that is the end of our Tracker's turn, so we will exhaust him. And let's just take Survivalist Dana next. Okay, so she starts with a card that is a 1 action. Let's just set that there. And we will draw 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, and we have a first aid kit, a flamethrower, and a water worth 3. So now, while I would love to have a 3 combat value card in my hand, we definitely need water in the supply. You see the very first card we drew, we needed it, we didn't have it. So we need to definitely make sure we have that in our supply. So I'm going to put that there in the supply. And of these 2, let's take the 1 flamethrower into her hand and then discard the first aid kit. because I'd like to see the first aid kit get shuffled back sooner than later. Flamethrowers we'll run into. I want to be able to heal our people later. So we'll add that to her hand. We'll discard the first aid kit. So now her hand is basically 2 cards that are 1 combat value each. So now we go on to the attack threats phase. There are no threats that are active out here. So we'll skip that, and then we'll go on to the use equipment phase. Now, I'm going to play cautiously. Right away, I want to take this first aid kit, and I want to use it, and I want to heal Tracker Tanaka's 1 health point. That way we have him back full health, and this will be quicker to be shuffled back into that deck. Now we're going to endure the expedition. We will flip this card, and we will see, of course, it's another bad event. But you look here, pay 1 water. Thanks to Survivalist Dana, we had 1 water to pay, so we will discard that card. And we're good there, and it says the active player loses 1 hit point. So Survivalist Dana is going to lose 1 hit point, and then we discard this card. And I will actually flip this so they're in order, because I'm kind of particular about cards being sorted nice and in order. And now we endured the expedition. We're going to exhaust her card. And here's her cards. Now we'll go on to Expedition Lead Hans. Hans currently has a hand that is a 2 combat value card. We will draw his 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. We have a flamethrower, we have water, and we have a flare. So we're going to put water into the supply. And we will take a flamethrower in hand, and we'll discard the flare just because we don't have any threats out right now, so I don't feel a need to hold on to a flare card. Well, actually, these are going on the hand anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point in the game. So we'll discard that. Now we have no need to play any attack cards because there's no threats to attack, and we have no equipment that we really want to use because it's water, and we need that for the bad events. So Hans will go ahead and he will draw his expedition or endure the expedition, and this is it's our first threat. So first we deal with the combat. So one person is going, or there's going to be 1 damage to 1 person in our group. Now it goes to the person who has not had a turn yet. Well, these 2 are exhausted, so it would be somebody else who is left standing that is not yourself, because you cannot choose yourself. So since I'm the only person who hasn't been exhausted and you can't choose yourself, I have to pick one of these other 2. Dana's already down 1. Let's take Tanaka down 1. Back to the threat. This is going to be a Raging Onager with a 2 health, and it says at the end of each turn, or at the end of each round while this threat is in play, you must discard 1 food from the supply if possible. Otherwise, 1 player loses 1 hit point. This card kind of sucks. So we're going to set that there. That's an active threat. And that's all Dana gets to do, or Hans rather gets to do. So he's going to set his hand there, and he's going to exhaust his card. Now, what would happen at the end of the round, after all the players go, the threat takes effect. So again, we're going to look at this threat, and it says at the end of each round, while this threat is in play, you must discard 1 food from the supply if possible. We have water in the supply. We have no food in the supply. Well, that kind of stinks. If not, 1 player is going to lose 1 hit point. And this stays in play until you destroy it. So we'll take Hans, he'll take 1 damage. And then we'll go ahead and, since the threat took their turn, it's the end of the round, we will reset or refresh our people. Oops, and I just moved the life tracker on that one. Okay, and we can start back, and we can, again, pick what player we want to go first. So I'm going to say Dana's going to go first this time. How come? Just because. No rhyme or reason. So here's her hand. We'll draw 3 cards from the deck. We keep 1, put 1 in our hand, and discard 1. So the one that we'll keep in the supply, we'll keep the first aid kit. And big choice there of a ice axe that does 1 or an ice axe that does 1. So we'll keep that in our hand and discard this one. Now, here's where it gets fun, is Dana can choose to attack a threat. So this threat has 2 health. See right here, 2 health. So we are going to say we'll attack it. And this does 1 damage. Well, let's do 2 damage on it. I'm going to play the food card out of her hand because I want this to get shuffled back into this deck. So that way when we're out of cards, we'll hit that food card again later, and sooner than later. So we're going to do the food, and we'll just say an ice axe. So what we'll do is we'll set both of these behind here, just to kind of show that we've done 2 damage to this guy. And I'll just set that back in her hand for now. Now, we also get to, for phase 3, use equipment. So she's going to use a first aid kit, and she's going to choose to heal Hans. Why not? All right, now during the use equipment phase, which is optional, I would want to use a flamethrower or an ice axe so that I can get rid of this raging onager who's already had its health met. So this should die, I just need one of those cards. I don't have one in the general supply. However, Dana has a skill that says you may discard any 1 card from your hand and treat it as if you used a flamethrower from the supply. So, and if it wasn't Dana's turn, if it was Tanaka's turn, you could still use her power, or if she didn't have the ability to do that, you could use his skill. It doesn't matter whose turn it is, you can use one of the survivor's skill at any point in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and use this skill on Dana, and we will discard this flamethrower from her hand. And then we will use that, because of her power, to be able to discard this threat. So this threat is now gone, goes into the discard pile that I will clean up, because my cards are sliding all around. And then, that's the end of that phase. We will endure the expedition. So Dana's going to draw this card. Oh, and this threat is going to do 1 damage to somebody who hasn't had a turn yet. So I can pick either Tracker Tanaka or Expedition Lead Hans. I will do Hans because he has full health at the moment. And we'll look here, and this guy this guy has 8 health. And when it comes time to at the end of the round, when he gets to do something, it says all players draw only 1 card on their turn while this threat is in play. So while it doesn't necessarily kill you, only having 1 card is pretty miserable. So we're going to set that guy there. Finally, we're going to exhaust Survivalist Dana. She has had her turn, and because Expedition Lead Hans took damage when this guy came out, he has to take the next turn. So we see currently he has a 2 combat value and a 1 combat value in his hand. He is going to draw 3 cards, 1, 2, 3. We'll look at them. 1 goes to his hand, 1 goes to the supply, and 1's going to get discarded. We will say, let's put the food and the supply, and either one of these are fine in his hand because they both do 2 combat damage. So we'll just put that in the discard pile and put this in his hand. So he can do 5 damage in his hand now. That's a good thing. All right, so now we have the attack threat. So this does 5 damage total. So we are actually going to use all of Hans's cards to try to kill this infected researcher. So that does 5 damage out of 8, so he has 3 health left. I have no more cards to play. The equipment phase, I can use equipment here. Don't have any that I need to use, so no worries there. Now it's time to endure the expedition. So what happens next? Yet another bad event. So first we have to pay 1 water. We have a water here. Pay it, it's gone. And then this says, Frozen Solid, discard 1 ice axe from the supply if possible, which it isn't, we only have food there. Otherwise, discard the top card of the Outpost deck. So this gets discarded, and we will discard the top card of the Outpost deck, which would have been an ice axe. That is the end of Hans's turn, and now it's Tracker Tanaka's turn. If we look at Tracker Tanaka, we're looking at 3 combat value, which will be nice because it'll help us to defeat this infected researcher. We only have 1 card to draw, so we're going to shuffle these cards up. So 1, 2, 3. Take that 1. That becomes a draw pile. We'll take a look here. We have flamethrower, food, and ice axe. I'm going to put flamethrower down here because we're going to want to get rid of this guy when we can. And we'll discard the food because it's just an attack value, and we'll put this one attack value or combat value into his hand. So now it's the attack phase, attack a threat. So he's got 2, 4, 5 here out of the 8, so we need 3 more. So I'll take these 2 cards and put them under the threat. So now we have a total of 8 damage to the threat, which only has 8 health. And this card stays in Tracker Tanaka's hand because we're not going to use that. Goes on to the use equipment phase. We will use this flamethrower, which states, required to defeat a threat that has had its life reduced to 0. So we can now get rid of this threat. Put these cards into the discard pile. And now we are going to endure the expedition, which is draw the next card. And we have a Raging Boar, which does 1 damage to somebody who hasn't had a turn yet, who's not exhausted. Everybody is exhausted except for Tanaka, whose turn it is. You can't do the damage on yourself, so we'll just pick Hans. Then what this says is at the end of each round while this threat is in play, you must discard 1 food or 1 water from the supply if possible. Otherwise, 1 player loses 1 hit point. This is lousy too. So that's the end of Tracker Tanaka's phase 4. So phase 5, he's going to exhaust himself. And now it's the threat's turn. So again, what we just read here is going to happen. We have to discard 1 food or 1 water from the supply, or somebody's going to lose some health. So we have 1 food in the supply, so we'll discard that. So we're good there. And everybody's going to refresh. And if you notice now, we are running low on cards, and we got a pretty cruddy threat out there. So I'm going to say Hans is going to go first, because Hans only has 2 health left. So he's going to draw 3 cards from the draw deck. 1, 2, 3. Now look here, we have First Aid Kit, Flare, and Ice Axe. Well, I definitely want the First Aid Kit to go into the supply. And I'll take the Ice Axe that does 3 damage into his hand, and the Flare will get discarded. We're going to attack the threat phase. So we will give the Raging Boar will take 3 damage out of the 8 that it can handle. Equipment phase. We are going to use the First Aid Kit, and he's going to heal himself a little bit. All right, and then after the equipment phase, it's time to endure the expedition. Here comes more fun, and we have a Raccoon Dog. So first and foremost, it does 1 damage to somebody who's not exhausted yet. So we pick Dana or Tanaka. Let's do Tanaka. And then this says, at the end of each round, while this threat is in play, 1 player loses 1 hit point. This is another really cruddy one, and it's going to be in play right here now. And then, because we started with Hans, he is exhausted. Now Tanaka took damage from this threat, so we'll pull his hand forward. It's going to be his turn. And we'll draw 3 cards. Now we're in trouble because we need food and water, we need a First Aid Kit, and we need some high attack cards. So we'll start with the First Aid Kit, because Tanaka has a skill that he can discard a card from his hand to use it as food from the supply, and Hans has one that you could do the same thing but for water. So we should be safe if worse comes to worse, hopefully. So then we'll take the Flare card into his hand, so that way it does more damage than the other, and we'll discard the water. Now here's Tanaka's hand right now, and this does 3 damage. So what we're going to do is, I want to get rid of this Raccoon Dog as quick as possible, because it just kills health no matter what's in the supply. That's no good. So we'll give him 3 damage. Can't discard him yet because we need a flamethrower or a fire axe, or rather an ice axe. So we'll put that there. It goes on to use equipment. First Aid Kit we're going to use, and we are going to heal 1 life on Tracker Tanaka. Now he gets to endure the expedition. Now you see where this is going very, very wrong. And, where are all the good things? Where's the good stuff? It's not in here. So first of all, 1 damage, and it's going to go to Dana, because it's not Dana's turn. And then this is, well, we have to use a flamethrower to defeat this threat, and Ice Axe has no effect. So while this isn't going to hurt us in any future rounds, it still kind of it's going to be out there hanging around until we kill it at the very end. But this one isn't really too bad, all things considered. We'll put that there. But now we have 3 threats. If we ever have 5 of them, we lose the game. So we got to start acting here. So Tanaka is exhausted. And now it's Dana's turn. So let's draw up some cards for Dana. Come on, Dana, what do you got for us? A nice axe, some food, and some water. Ooh, but this is a 3 attack. And an ice axe. So the ice axe is going in the supply because we want to be able to kill the raccoon dog. I want to take the 3 in hand because I want to try and knock out that raging boar sooner than later. So then we'll choose to discard the food. So now we're going to attack a threat. So 3, he's already dead. This guy's got 3, so now he has 6. So he only has 2 health left. Now we're going to use equipment. We'll use the ice axe to kill the raccoon dog. Yay, there's 1 threat gone. Now we have to endure the expedition, and it is not looking good for us. Oh, another bad one. All right, pay 1 water. We don't have any water. And even though Expedition Lead Hans says you may discard any 1 card from your hand and treat it as if you used the water from the supply, he doesn't have any cards in his hand. So first, because we can't do that, somebody's losing health. That's just the nature of the game, so okay, Hans will lose some health. And then it says discard 1 food or 1 water from the supply if possible. That's not possible. Otherwise, 1 player loses 1 hit point. Well, 1 player is going to have to lose 1 hit point, so we'll say Tanaka. And then this will get discarded. And we're getting there. We're getting through the deck. There's still a lot of cards, and it's not looking good. So then, Survivalist Dana will be exhausted. And now we go to these and we do the bad stuff. We do their actions. All right? So this is nothing that's on, this is just an ongoing effect. It's not an attack. So we're okay there. But this raging boar is going to hurt us. At the end of each round, while this threat is in play, you must discard 1 food or 1 water from the supply, which is impossible. Otherwise, 1 player loses a hit point. So guess what? 1 player is losing a hit point. We'll just say Tanaka. And can you see right now where we're getting in some trouble? So let's reset everybody. We need some health. We need some extra cards. We need help. So I'm going to have Tanaka go first because Tanaka only has 1 health. And I don't want him to accidentally take any kind of damage. So we'll draw 3 cards up for him. What do we got? What do we got? First aid kit, ice axe, flare. Well, first aid kit's going to be good for the general supply. Flare and ice axe are both moot because they're both worth 1 combat value. So 1 combat value into his hand. So he'll attack this guy. So now this guy has 7 out of 8 health down. Tanaka has no more cards in it. Well, you know what? No. So this is interesting. We can attack this guy for 1 health, or for 1 combat value, or Tanaka can hold on to this card. Because again, Tanaka's power is that we can use a card in his hand as though there's food in the supply. So what I think I'm going to do is, this is only a 1 combat value. We're getting low here, and we're definitely going to draw a card out of this that's going to require us to have food or water. So we're not going to attack this round, so he's just going to hold on to that. We're going to use equipment. We'll use the first aid kit, and I guess we'll use it on him because he is almost dead. Even though I'd like to bring some of the other people up more, just in case. I don't feel comfortable with 1 person on 1 health. And now we'll endure the expedition. Bad stuff. Hey, look. Pay 1 food. Tanaka's power. Discard a card from your hand and treat it as if you used food. So we will do that. We'll discard this card. Hey, we met that. Snowed in. Discard 1 flamethrower from the supply if possible. Not possible. Our supply stinks right now. Otherwise, discard the top card. So we will discard the top card. Okay, now we'll move on to Dana's turn. Dana. Ooh, last 3 cards in the deck. And we have a flamethrower worth 3 combat value, food, and a nice axe. Well, let's see. I think that we're going to want to... See, this is getting tough. This is where I'm going to make a decision that everybody's like, what's wrong with you? we're gonna put the ice axe in the supply. We will discard the food, probably a dumb decision, and then we will keep this in our hand as an attack. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hedge our bets. And then for the attack phase, she's going to play this onto the Raging Boar, which is gonna be overkill, but at least it will be damaged, or dead. She's gonna play an equipment card as the ice axe, so we'll be able to get rid of this Raging Boar, and we're starting to play catch up here. It's gonna be okay. Now we endure the expedition. No! 1 damage to somebody who's not exhausted. Uh-oh, Expedition Lead Hans has only 1 life left. You cannot use cards with a CV value of 3 to attack this threat. Well, that's okay, because that just means this is going to hang out and be a little nagging. It's not really going to hurt us in the long run now. And then Dana's exhausted, and we're going to move on to Hans. So let's shuffle up these cards for Hans. He's going to draw 3 cards, and 3, a 3, and a 3, a 3, and a 3, a 3, and a 2. So let's put this water worth 3 here. We'll hold on to the... Actually, let's do this differently. We're going to put the water worth 2 here. We'll hold on to the water worth 3 and discard the flamethrower worth 3. For his attack turn, he's going to play an attack card on this guy, bringing him down a little bit. Use the equipment. No, not going to. And then we will endure the expedition. Where are the good stuff? Where's it at? I know it's in there. So 1 damage to somebody who's not exhausted. Everybody's exhausted. Can't be himself, so we'll just say Dana's going to go down to 1 health, and you're going to watch me lose this game in a second. Infected Explorer. At the end of each round, while this threat is in play, the last player to take a turn must discard 1 card, or else they lose 1 hit point. Well, guess what? We're going to lose this turn in this hand, because Hans is the last player taking a turn. He has no cards in his hand because we played it as an attack card. So we're going to be screwed. So that's the end of Hans' turn. We're going to exhaust Hans. Now all the bad stuff happens from all the bad guys. Siberian Tiger does nothing. The brown bear is just kind of hanging out eating our food, no big deal. But now we get to the Infected Explorer. At the end of each round, while this threat is in play, the last player to take a turn, which was Hans, must discard 1 card or else they lose 1 hit point. We do not have any cards to discard, and I'm not the type that's going to say, oh, instead of attacking that, I'm going to put that back in my hand. We're dead. So Hans loses his last health. He dies, which is fine because Dana and Tanaka never really liked Hans anyway. He didn't like the same movies. He always complained about their music, and they didn't like the food he ate. It kind of smelled bad. So Hans is gone, but now the survivalists all lose. And that right there is Outpost Siberia. So as you can see, there was a lot of stress, a lot of decision making, and what you do from turn to turn definitely comes back to haunt you, because you see I was being very aggressive, trying to get these non-essential threats cleared. And at the end of the day, my inexperience has cost us dearly. And that stupid Infected Explorer, who was probably a friend of theirs from way back, just came back and kind of gave them a bad day. So that's the game. I'm going to take you up top, and I will let you know what I think of this game.
All right, guys, so that was Outpost Siberia. So what are my thoughts on Outpost Siberia? I've done a number of playthroughs on this, and let me start by saying I've read the comments in the forums, and I know that a lot of people are frustrated at the game, that it is very, very hard. And so much so that IDW has actually gone ahead and released some updated rules to kind of help people maybe make it a little further or survive better, if you will. And I've played both ways. So I played the game with the original rules, and I played with the updated rules. And definitely the updated rules are a lot easier, and when I say easier, I mean incredibly difficult, but not constant failure. But it makes it a little bit easier. It gives you a little more of a head start to win. So that is one thing that I think if you've heard any negative feedback on the game, Definitely check out the rule changes, because I think you'll be pleased to see maybe how the not that the difficulty's been lessened, but it doesn't beat you up quite as much. Now, I was super excited. I received this game as a review copy from IDW, and this was actually a game that was on my list to check out because I love cooperative games. I love the survival kind of theme, and also John Gilmore I'm familiar with from Dead of Winter. So whenever I see his name attached to something, I definitely am kind of intrigued by it. So this did not disappoint me at all. When I first got it, I broke it out immediately, like literally 20 minutes after unboxing it. I pulled it out and set up a playthrough to play on my lunch. And I got my rear end handed to me in no time, and I just got destroyed. But you know, I tried again and again, and this is definitely a game that you get better at the more you play. So it's kind of like, I look at it as kind of like Friday. So the game Friday is notoriously difficult when you play on the, I guess on the higher levels, but it's still winnable. And the goal is for it to not be winnable every time you play, because then it wouldn't be any fun, right? In my opinion anyway, when you're playing a survival game or a cooperative game, if you won every game of Pandemic you played, if you won every game of you know, Dead of Winter or Friday or Robinson Crusoe, if you won every game, there'd be no sense in playing anymore. So that's kind of how I feel about Outpost Siberia. And even though I've never won, and I've played probably 10, 15 games since receiving my review copy, and I haven't won at all. I've played by myself, I've played with other people. We've all enjoyed it greatly. Every time we play, we seem to make it a little bit further, but we never win. And you know what, that's just fine. I have absolutely enjoyed the gameplay, and I think that's what it's all about. And I don't want to be on a soapbox at all, because again, I know that it's a difficult game and people have an issue with that and have taken exception to that. But I think it's important to note up front that one, the difficulty has been addressed. There are updated rule sets, so check it out. And two, it's okay to not win. It's the gameplay alone has made it enjoyable, and then on top of that, the day that I do win, because I will win, will be that much better, and it'll be memorable in a moment that I can share with my friends and say, hey guys, remember that time that we won Outpost Siberia? That was awesome. I will say that this is listed as a 2 to 6 player game. I have played it solo. It's a cooperative game, so you can do that with any cooperative game. It's definitely more enjoyable with more people, because it's good to see what their thoughts are, and you know, it's always more fun to play with more people, in my opinion. Let's talk about the components of the game. There's not a whole lot to it. It's a stack of cards and a couple of little markers, little cardboard chits. And the cards are great. The cards are a high quality gloss. I was actually surprised that they were as hardy and as glossy as they were. So I thought that was a good thing. The rule book, well, that left a little bit to be desired, and I think that and not the quality, but more so the way the rules were written. I found myself having to read them a few times to really understand what was meant, and there was a little bit of vagueness to the original rules. And again, a lot of that I think was addressed. If you read the updated rules, it's a nice summary, and I think that's everything you really need to play the game. So that definitely helped alleviate that. But my initial few playthroughs were a little sketchy, that I felt like I was having a harder time grasping it than I should have at a glance for what the game was. Once I caught on, it was great. The gameplay really sailed, and there was no difficulty, not to winning the game, but no difficulty in understanding what to do from turn to turn. The cards that it comes with are multi-use cards, and I'm a big fan of multi-use cards because I think it's a fun idea, because you actually get to, if you're not using the card for one thing, you can use it for another, and it's just, I don't know what it is about multi-use cards, but I like that idea. I don't want to call it a mechanic, because it's not really a mechanic. It's just a nice little feature. So it's cool to have a card that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on where it is in the deck. Overall, the art in the game is pretty good. Some of the pictures are really, really cool. Some of them are more basic and generic, but given their role, and if you play the game, you'll understand what I mean, but like some of the event cards that you'll pull. They're all kind of samey, and they're supposed to be, because it's either a good event or a bad event, and it's either a dude in a park is shivering or, you know, whatever. And the chits that were included were the standard punch board kind of quality, so you know there's no complaints there, and they look good and they serve their purpose. So all in all, with the component quality, I was quite pleased. So let's get down, bottom line, getting back to the game and my feelings on the game. So I really enjoyed the game. It is brutal. It is absolutely brutal. You're going to lose. You might never win. And I say that more in jest. Since switching over to the new rules, again, it's gotten a lot easier. We've gotten much farther, and I feel like with the right card draws and maybe with the right play, we'll actually see many more wins. I've taken some of the recommendations that the publisher has put out there in the new rules as far as what to do to kind of try and have a good win and, you know, take care, you know, heal yourself right away, don't save the first aid kits, and then you start to learn how to work through your deck to maybe play a card to get it to cycle back quicker. And I'm very pleased with the way that the gameplay flows now with that. I feel like I can actually win. I feel a sense of accomplishment moving a little bit further, and that one day I will actually win the game. I've played this with a few casual gamers, and I played this with a few more seasoned gamers, and everybody has enjoyed it. Again, it takes the right person. If you're absolutely turned off on a difficult game, don't play it. But if you like a challenge, definitely pick it up. So all in all, I really enjoyed the game, and I would definitely go back and play it again. So as long as you're good with a difficult game, definitely go pick it up. It's a lot of fun to play, win, lose, or draw. I guarantee you will enjoy it if you're a fan of the cooperative theme, the struggle kind of game that this provides. All right, guys, this is Lee from Geek City USA. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to like and subscribe, or go ahead and comment with me down below. I'd love to interact with you guys in the comments, or check us out on Facebook at Geek City USA and say hey there. I'd love to interact with you there as well. Again, thanks for checking us out. Take care.